All right, everybody, welcome to Shally's Alley. You are live on January 16th, our second episode of the year, in our 357th episode or something like that. Can you believe that? It is a lot of episodes. Um, and I think I'm finally getting the hang of it. Maybe, I'm not sure. You tell me, give me some feedback and let me know. Today, we have a very special guest, and I'm super excited to have Martel on because I feel like I invited him decades ago. It's like we've been talking about him being on the show for a while. He was introduced to me via a mutual friend, and we got along really well and have been keeping in touch since then. And I was like, you know what? It would be awesome if you came on the show. And he was like, yeah, it's a great idea. And then it didn't happen until 2026. So welcome finally, Martel. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, likewise. I enjoy it. It's a nice, I would say, cool day in Georgia. That's where I'm
It
located at.
is. Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. Excited to getting all things sourcing. So,
We are both in Atlanta. Um, and like I said, even though we're in Atlanta, we were introduced by someone else, which is unusual, as I thought I knew everybody in Atlanta. Of course, I don't, but you know. Um, anyways, so Martel has a background in sourcing. Most of his career, or I think all of your career, right, has been in either staffing or sourcing.
correct.
But prior to that, had spent some time as a script writer, which I didn't know. That's definitely not on your profile. So you were writing scripts for like plays or movies or what?
Oh, movies. I still write scripts.
Oh yeah.
Working on recently won a short film for one of the short scripts I wrote. Film festival. I work feature length screenplays, short scripts, and I work on getting those produced. I've always been into drama, theater, acting. Um,
Oh
it's
wow.
something that I
That's
always found
cool.
fun to do. And I look, how would I put this? I wanted my creative career to mirror my professional career. And sourcing, and in some ways, is a lot like, when you're writing scripts and screenplays. And once you get those done, you're looking at the characters and the actors who can best fit the role. And then you're working with maybe a producer or director. It's like the hiring manager to get the best people to play these parts.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome. That explains some of the flair for the drama. I don't mean
Yeah.
drama as in bad, but like the dramatic sort of flair that you have. So I love that in your about you say talent is the backbone of success, and I am the chiropractor. That's awesome. You're like you're adjusting the spine of success.
Right. Right.
Um,
True.
that is so effing cool. Uh, anyway, got a little sidetracked there. So
Yeah.
what's what's a recruiting talent belief, like what's a TA recruiting sourcing whatever, our industry, what's a belief that you hold that most people just still get wrong, and tell me why they're clinging to that. So what's something that want to kind of poke the bear, right? What is a belief about recruiting or TA sourcing that you hold true that most people get wrong?
I would say belief is about there's no perfect candidates. Um,
Okay.
like a lot of times people say, "Hey, we want the perfect candidate for this role." I don't particularly believe there is a perfect candidate for any role. You can have your, like I said, your unicorns and things of that nature, but I don't believe there is a such thing as a perfect candidate for a role. I think you have to dig deeper into that person's, of course, resume, story, background, and then all those things take those things into account to see who would best fit the position.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's not, there's not like a perfect fit, but there's a best fit. And
Right.
when you're saying there's no perfect candidate, are you also saying that you know, everybody has like negative traits? Everybody has something that's not a fit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not perfect, right?
Right, that's correct. It's like
Uh,
a lot like when you cast a role for a actor. Like they may hit 9 of the 10 things that you want, but they may be missing this part. Maybe they're not good at
and you
memorization,
either have to work on it, flex
things,
it, or just
things
or
of
work
that.
around it.
But there's things that you can train, and they'll become better at that. And I think a lot of times people miss finding excellent candidates when they say, "Hey, we want a perfect candidate that meets these 10 out of 10s." But there's things that you can work with them with, and they'll become better within that organization.
Right. Kind of like that old adage, they don't see the forest for the trees. Like they're so focused on finding the perfect tree that they don't realize there's a whole forest out there.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
True.
I gotcha. So looking at how recruiting teams operate today, you've been in the business for about 10 years, which is, I like to say that you're not a senior until you've been doing it for about 5 years, and you can't call yourself a senior anything, a senior recruiter, a senior whatever. So let's say 5 years in, most people are senior, experience season. You've doubled that. You got 10 years. So looking at how teams operate today, what problem keeps getting fixed over and over and over again with the wrong solution?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think on that for a moment.
And feel free to rant.
Oh, gotcha. Um, with like a problem that keeps getting fixed with the same bandage.
Yeah, and it's the wrong bandage. You know what I mean?
Maybe you could say to a degree, what do I call it, the pre-planning section, like when you're meeting with the hiring,
Yep, the kickoff
the
or
sourcing team all together. In that sense, it looks the same across many organizations. Like, hey, you meet with them, you get like, hey, what are your must-have, what are your nice-to-haves? Your just your basic questions, like you go in there with, and then everybody leaves the meeting with the notes, and then like 2 weeks later, like you get all this feedback. Oh, this is not the right person. This is the wrong person for the role. Things of that nature. Then you have to have another meeting to see what went wrong with, like, where did we go wrong here in finding the ideal candidate. And a lot of times that most people don't have a candidate persona that they bring with them into these meetings, and you have to get deeper than just your nice to have and your must haves. You have like,
okay,
what makes your team work? What's like how what's the flow of this? What's the benefit of joining your team? You have to get into things more nuanced than just your nice to haves and your must have. Flexible skills. What does a flexible skill look like to you, and what are they doing with that?
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So you're saying the requirements are more than just a set of skills and abilities and competencies. There's more to it than that. Am I getting that right?
Correct. Because there's a lot more to it than that. Because you can find the right skills and competencies, but
Okay.
how are they using those skills? Like, are they using them in the way that you have described them to us? And sometimes it's like going a lot deeper with questions. And I know one time I was working with a role that was a infrastructure engineer 2 role. We had our meeting. We did that. We said, okay, cool, we're good. We got the person that we want for a role. But when me and the recruiter was submitting profiles,
Mhm.
it was never like the right fit. Now, on the surface, to me, this person was kind of like steeped in VMware, so it's like this role shouldn't have been that hard to fill. But I know we worked on it for a little while, and then
And then it
what we
just
had to
got
do,
out of hand.
what we had to do eventually was go back, have another meeting with him. Still, it's like, I'm still not getting the right candidates, and eventually the recruiter, she looked into our old description for the role, and it described the role as a support role, as somebody who would let's say the main engineer was out, they would support the entire system. So
Okay.
what we had thought was,
A
he said
basic
support.
help desk kind of thing.
Right. And
Right.
it wouldn't have expanded upon that. So we're thinking of somebody who does like support. So the candidate we were submitting were wrong. But once, she looked into that, she sent that to me, I found the right person. That person got hired.
Interesting. So it was wrong by almost like level. Like it was the wrong
Correct.
level of seniority. Gotcha. And so that would have been something how would you have asked for that? Like how would you dig for that next time in the intake? How'd you do it over?
Gotcha. Good question. I think I was like asked a little bit more in general, like, hey, what are they supporting? What's the level of support that this person needs to be? As like you said,
Like the scope, like are they expected to
right.
fill in for someone or back someone else up? Maybe ask about like, if they're going to be next in line for someone's absence or something like that.
Correct. Kind of dig a little bit deeper into like, hey, what are they
Hmm.
actually responsible for? If so and so
Right.
is out
Yeah.
and are they supporting the whole?
I never thought of that. But like, who do they back up? If someone's, on the team is absent, who's the person that sort of like fills in? Because that happens a lot. We're supposed to take vacation and time off and have work-life balance, but we don't think about that kind of stuff when we're recruiting for people. So that's interesting.
And then if you think about it, it does make sense. Let's say, because usually you have in many organizations, you have that one person that knows everything. And then when that person's out, it's like nobody else, they haven't maybe passed on that language to somebody else, or there's not really a true backup. And then kind of things just kind of go up in the air once they're out or they leave.
Right. Back, like almost succession. I want to say succession planning. I know that's a big word, but I want to say like think about succession planning as part of the intake. Like, what role would they fill in if they were to? What's the career progression, and who would back them up when they leave if they, in that case. I like that. That's interesting. I do actually ask a little bit about when I do my intakes about leader roles, like what roles lead to this role. Like if I'm going to go look for someone that does this job at another company, what else can I be looking for? Where would they have worked prior to getting this job, or where were they like sort of like almost like you're looking at a river and sort of trace the river back to where did the river come from? What's the body of water that originated that flow? I go back to that. But what you're talking about is also downstream from where I am. And I never thought about that. That's good. Cool. So if you took recruiting and you stripped it down to like, let's just say 3 signals that predict success in recruiting and what we do, right? You take what we do and you strip it down to 3 signals that predict success. I know there's lots, but what are the 3 that you would keep?
Gotcha. That predicts success in like sourcing or recruitment.
Yeah.
I would say curiosity.
Okay.
You have to be curious about the role. So I think that's a big one for me. Kind of dig deeper and like learning about the roles. Like, hey, let me like ask more questions, look into what this person's doing, talk to people who are currently in the role to learn more about it. I would say curiosity is a big one. I think the ability, I don't want to sound cliche, but to be, driven, to have that internal motivation, to, hey, like, you want to, for me, I like to succeed at all costs.
Some people call that grit. So, okay. So curiosity, grit, and
I don't know. I'm trying to think what the other one would be. I'm trying to think of another C one because I like alliteration.
Okay.
So that's like triple alliteration. Like
we can come up with a C word.
Yeah, I was trying like, man. Well, courage. Courage would be one. Courage to like, hey, sometimes you're gonna be in a meeting with a, I don't want to say contentious, maybe like you're in a meeting with a hiring manager or hiring leader, and it's just like, hey, it's just not lining up. But you're gonna have the courage to ask those type of questions, like the hard hitting questions, like to get the role filled. You have to be able, hey, look, this is what we're seeing in the market. This is what my market intelligence tells me. This is where we would have to pivot to find the person that you're looking for.
Yeah. I suffer from a little bit of like imposter syndrome in a way. I think it's what I've heard other people refer to it. Like sometimes I'm like, should I really be in this meeting? Am I like, maybe I'm not senior enough to be like, I'm in a meeting with like a GM and a president, and and I'm like, maybe I'm outclassed here. Do I belong here sometimes? So yeah, that's it. I think that's a form of courage that you're talking about. Not just whether I need to be there, but in those cases when I feel like that, I will sometimes keep my mouth shut and not say anything. And so what you're saying is, you gotta step up. If you're there,
right? Yeah,
you're already there. They're not kicking you out, so you might as well state your business. And I think that's a good point. to make everyone suffers from some degree of imposter syndrome, right? We have this human nature to like question ourselves and, am I really good enough to do this? So that may be partly where that kind of comes from is, should I really ask the question? Maybe somebody else will ask it, or maybe it's not an important question. You're saying just, put it out there. Like, you know what? What's the worst thing that will happen is they won't answer the question.
True.
Okay, big deal, right? They're not gonna kick you out of the mail. Oh, that's a terrible question. You're out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be able to bring the data
like
with the. It's not enough just to bring data. You have to bring in insights. Like
and it's part of that curiosity. You just said it's a signal, right?
Right.
If curiosity is a signal, well, geez, asking questions is a good form of curiosity. So, all right. So, what would you drop? What signal would you drop? Those are the three that courage, curiosity, and what we call the grit. But alliteration thing. What would be the one that you would drop? Like, folks, this is not.
Well, which one would I drop?
Yeah. Might even be harder than which ones to keep, right?
I haven't thought of that one. I haven't.
Like, what capability do recruiters think they're good at, but maybe not matter much? Like, they think they're good at it, but it doesn't actually really help them become successful.
No, I was. Because the only one I can kind of think of is like just trying to be these like a super generalist at all things.
Kind of a know-it-all, jack of all trades, they call it. Jack or Jill of all trades. Okay. Yeah, all right. I'll buy that.
That's the only one I kind of can think of at the moment. So yeah, that's a good question. So.
What capability do you think recruiters are gonna like not mind being automated? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to talk a little bit about one of your passions, which is work, AI and automation, and how you've written about how AI has changed what you call the surface of recruitment, and I do want to get to that. But on our way there, can we also answer like what's something that recruiters and sourcers do that kind of automation should replace? Like, we'll all be like, oh, thank God that's gone, right? Like, I'm so glad AI finally took that off my plate. What's one thing that you can think of that we would all be happy to just
gotcha. Let's see, probably I think you kind of like more to like the repetitive tasks. I think to a degree scheduling would be one of the best there. I don't want to say messaging. I think to a degree you can use it to aid your messaging.
Yeah. I mean, even if the AI handles iterations, you're still the one writing the. You might be writing the templates. But I don't think that's one that's going to be completely gone. We might still have to supervise it, to edit, to tweak it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about what's one thing that the next wave of automation would completely like eliminate from our desk and take over, and then we would all be literally grateful. Like, that's awesome.
Gotcha.
Could be a capability. Doesn't have to be a task.
I'm trying to think what could.
Like, what about if I'll just kind of posit, maybe a couple, right? For example, what about the process of like whittling down requirements? How we get a job description or job posting, and it's got basically a wish list of 40 items that the hiring manager wants. And of course, some of those are must have, some of those are nice to have. Some of them probably don't even need to be there. So what if like we could chat with a chat bot that would help us write a job description that was more streamlined, so we don't end up with these kind of Frankenrecs. You know what I mean by Frankenrecs?
Right.
Like a rec that used to be 3 recs and got put together. It's got the arm of one rec, the leg of the other rec, leg and the torso of the other rec, and it got put together, and now it's this Frankenrec. So what about that? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Or what about, scheduling? Definitely, I think scheduling is a good one, honestly, because there's some complexity to scheduling that, whether you're human or an AI, is frustrating. Like, for example,
Yeah.
human or AI, it doesn't matter. When you look at someone's calendar and you're trying to find a spot to throw an interview on, let's say they're a hiring manager, for example, and you're trying to find a spot, and there's like blocks on their calendar that say, meetings or unavailable or whatever, and it's so generic, you don't really know. Is that something can I overwrite on
Right.
that? Can I, is it just a mild block, or is it a hard, like an AI may not be able to determine that, and a human looking at the calendar may not be able to determine that. So there's these kind of like, wouldn't it be nice if the AI was able to reach out to them and say, hey, this block on your calendar, is it a real block, or can I put something on there? And that's part of the, right now we have to manually do that. We have to reach out to the manager and say, there's no availability next week. Can I overwrite one of your blocks? So maybe that's something.
Maybe like an AI agent, like an internal AI
that would actually talk to people. Be like, hey, you're blocked, but is there anything on your calendar, that we can use for an interview? We have an important interview. Can you move anything? Right? Because even we as humans would look at the calendar and still not be able to determine what's going on.
Right. True.
Yeah.
But we still have to reach out, and I think that would kind of take a lot of recruiters and sourcers to, depending on their level of interaction with the schedule. So.
Yeah. Cool. So tell me a little bit more about, you talked about AI changing the surface of recruitment. Throw me some wisdom. Give me some examples of what you mean by that. Like what is changing and what is the surface of recruitment to begin with?
For far as the Discernment and AI, like some of this foundational aspects, like I said, I love Boolean and X-Ray. I think those are key components, like for foundational sourcing and recruiting. And the AI changes that to a degree where it can spit out strings pretty quickly. But I think a lot of entry-level sourcers or recruiters, even your most immediate or expert people, still need to be wrapped in learning, X-Ray or Boolean if you don't know, because in my opinion, that comes down to, I say, critical thinking. It's like, how do you allow your mind to pivot quickly? Like when you're working with a string or Boolean, you're learning you're learning the position, you're learning the roles, you're learning what actually goes into that, and you're learning how people actually frame what they talk about. If you just allow the AI to do it, and you just copy paste, you're not learning that aspect of a person's role, or how they talk about what they do, what titles they use. It goes even deeper than that. Like, hey, if you're looking for people who may be bilingual, instead of using a string in English, use the alternative phrasing of that title in maybe Spanish or German, and you may be able to open up more worlds of candidate pools. That's part of what I think.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned in the forum where you completed to sign up for being a guest on the show, you mentioned a phrase that it kind of made me raise my eyebrow. What does that mean? And I wanted you to explain a little bit. I don't know anything about this, so you're gonna have to explain what you mean by this. You said discernment over automation, which is one of those, like, it's a phrase that it seems like it's really powerful, but I'm not quite sure I understand the heft or the meaning of it. What does discernment over automation mean?
Gotcha. What it means to me, what I look at it as, I like to use the fable, if you know the fable of John Henry and the steam machine.
Oh, I do know that one. Yeah.
And his battle against that machine.
And the fact that he was better, faster, stronger with the hammer.
Right.
I don't know if it was a hammer or got it.
Right. Like how would I put this? Like, John Henry was able to use his discernment to be able to beat the machine. Like, he knew the rail system. He knew where to strike, what nail to hit, where I need to do this to pivot to move faster. The machine only knew what it's inputted to do. It's like, it's just going to strike. That's what it's going to do. It keeps striking. But John Henry, using his knowledge and discernment of, like I said, the rail, how to swing a hammer, he was able, to beat that machine. In the end, he won. The human spirit endured over the machine. Um, that's what I mean by using that discernment over just hey, let me just plug this into the AI and let it do it for me. Um, the AI necessarily didn't have that discernment unless you tell it to have that discernment. Like, hey, I want you to act as such and such that
And
has
make it right. That's right.
right 20
That's a
year
good point.
experience recruiting or sourcing, and
Right.
still you have to look it over. Like you have to explain it. You have when you're talking to these AI bots, you have to or LLMs, you have to talk to them like you're talking to almost like maybe a 3-year-old child. You have to literally dictate what you want it to do and still read that over because it it doesn't have that human discernment of like this looking at this position or this person. It doesn't have that wherewithal to I think pivot as quickly.
No, I understand now what you're saying perfectly. I think. Well, I think I do. Um, so it's there's a school of thought. First of all, it's something that popped in my head. I've been reading a lot of articles lately about how the bubble is bursting, if you will, on AI, particularly on agentic or agents, where they frequently don't do the work that they were expected to do, and people still have to kind of come back in after the work is finished and fix it and clean it up and things like that, which is what you're talking about. So I'm framing my question or my follow up with the fact that I've been reading a lot about that, and you're talking about discernment as it's a uniquely human skill, and you're saying that sometimes automation, if trained correctly and prompted correctly or whatever, could potentially work with that, but there still needs to be human oversight, which I think is that discernment, right? It's a judgment thing, right? So let me ask you this. Is it possible then, in your opinion, that a machine, a robot, artificial intelligence of some kind could ever get to the point where it has the ability to replace humans in that regard? And the reason I'm asking is, what I'm really asking is, will machines get to the point where they can exercise judgment? And the reason I'm doubting that is, in John Henry's, using your fable example, there were situations or conditions that had never been encountered before by the machine. So if you design a machine to solve 27 problems and a 28th problem comes up, the machine is not necessarily equipped to create a new solution for a problem that didn't previously exist and it wasn't trained for. For example, the robots that play chess have occasionally been, even the top ones have occasionally been beaten by grandmasters that are human, because the robot can only look at all of the moves that have ever been done before, and there are some moves that have never been done before. So if you could think of a move that's never been done before, can a machine do that?
I like that. I like that. I think I read article recently where a human beat one of these top-notch chess bots.
Yeah, and if I'm correct, it's the one that the same article I read, which is that the reason they did that is because they made a sacrifice so counterintuitive and so outside of the norm that it was essentially a bait. Like, it baited the machine. They made a sacrifice with a piece that was of high value. A machine would have never made that sacrifice because it's never been done before, but they took a chance knowing that the machine was thinking in linear logic and made a sacrifice that threw a machine for a loop, and the machine made a mistake because it didn't know how to respond. And that's how they beat it.
Right.
By literally doing something
yeah,
incongruent with normal standards. Yeah.
true.
So can machines ever get to the point where they will sacrifice a piece that that the rules say you shouldn't sacrifice?
That's a good question. How would I put this? I always say,
I mean, no is my answer, but
right.
you know.
Yeah. I think is what they say. You never say never, but I think
right. That's right. Yeah.
it would be. I'm a big. How do I look at this? I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I look at it like AI now, almost like data.
Mhm.
Data is an android from the Starship Enterprise. For those who you don't know, he's a autonomous being in of himself. Um, I look at like at that like when people talk about AI agents, it's like almost working with a like an android type person. Um, but I think a good, how would I put this? A good way to explain this, like even though data could probably do most things on that ship faster and more efficiently um, than the rest of the crew could. But
Right, but then data wouldn't be able to do everything all the time.
exactly, they don't let him do everything, because he's only knows like because there's situations where he's has encountered where he didn't know what to do because
Exactly.
you know, even though he can calculate super quickly and super fast, he didn't know what to do in that situation. Um,
That's
that's
interesting because that's a really good comparison between Data and Spock. So Spock follows logic to a degree that typically humans don't, and is ruled by like logic over emotion. Where humans make sometimes decisions emotionally that may be illogical. Spock is all about logic. Data is clearly also all about logic, but in a different way. Data is all about logic following a sort of um, robotic or mechanical process to a certain degree. So Data is faster than Spock, although they both operated on logic. However, the human emotion or intuitive behavior is sometimes needed in order to solve a problem that neither Data nor Spock can solve.
that's true. That's true. That's a
Interesting.
good scenario. I didn't think about it that way, but that's true. Yeah, they both part of that same paradigm of logic. But you say Spock is a little bit different, and then Data has a little
Spock
bit
has intuition, but
right,
isn't affected as much by emotion, right? Data has no emotion and isn't
right.
affected as much by intuition, but both of them need that human discernment sometimes from the emotional side that helps us guide our decision and is sometimes what people call leadership. I mean, really, what it comes down to is, a leader's job is to say, we're going to go this way. And sometimes they can explain why. Sometimes you ask a leader, why are we going there? And they say, I don't know. I just feel like that's the right choice. And there's no logic necessarily that they can point to. There might be, but leaders are sometimes making decisions in the battlefield and corporations and, in crisis situations that run against what the math would show would be the right answer. So I think that's kind of where I think we're arriving at the answer to my question, which is leadership and the determination to do something that is not necessarily the path dictated by formulas
Right.
is what separates that discernment over automation.
True. That's a
Yeah.
lot like sorry for the Star Trek reference, guys. That's a lot like for me. It's like it's hard to fathom Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk does things like kind of like I like procedures and
He's like
processes.
all emotion, right?
Right. He just like does
It's
things
all intuition.
right, and it's just like okay, this like okay, I guess we'll do it. He's the captain, so you have to follow through with it. But it's
Right.
like
Spock is by the rules, Data
yeah,
is by the math or the science, and Kirk is like by the seat of his pants.
exactly, and it's
Yeah.
just hard to like. And usually, I know it's a show, so it usually doesn't work out for him. But it's just like so, it's such a different contrast. It's just like, hey, let me just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So, you've said that great sourcing is intelligence work, not just outreach, and part of that is is the intelligence gathering, if you will, and you
Right.
talk about Boolean and script writing. Do you have any magic for us on? I mean, folks a lot of times underestimate Boolean, and a lot of people say Boolean is dead. The reality is that Boolean is never going to die because Boolean is very simple. It's just three things: it's and or not. All the other things people think of as Boolean are field syntax or commands or other features, filters, etc. But the mathematical down to brass tacks Boolean is you've got this or that, you got this and that, and you got this not that.
Right.
So do you have any magic for us in Boolean script writing or something that you can share?
Oh, gotcha. Like, there's a lot of things you can, use with Boolean. Of course, in anchor, the in title,
Hmm.
uh,
Those advanced
operator,
commands. Uh-huh.
before and after operators. I've used that to find people as well. That's a very good one, especially if you're looking for like certifications, things of that nature.
You talk
You can
about
use
Google. So how would you use that, for example?
before and after. Like, I've used that for, let's say, I was looking for somebody with a AWS certification that
Okay.
I need them to have a current um, certification. So I would use like, hey, April, let's say like 2025 or before such and such date or between these two dates. I need for
Oh,
them to
got it.
have their certification, and I'll run that in my string, and it would bring up those profiles of people who have, hey, people who gained this certain certification within this time framing.
So not
You can
just the certification on their page, but in a particular place before or after something.
right,
Got it.
correct. And then you can also use that for school dates, I think, as well, if you need it be.
Graduation. Uh-huh.
There's a lot. I didn't have my X-ray thing. Uh, Hold on, my X-ray Word document open, but I
Oh,
have like
tell you what, that would be perfect. If you have something like that or a redacted version of that that you wouldn't mind sharing with our members, I can drop it in as an attachment in our online community. So perhaps you can share that, or maybe not the whole thing, but like a summary or a minimal version of that. That would be awesome. And folks, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, you would join TSI University as an insider. It's a very small subscription, and $12 a month, and you would have access to all of the bonus content from not just Shelly's Alley, but also a bunch of curriculum that we have in TSI University, past classes on AI browsers and things like that. So check it out, tsiuniversity.com. So yeah, you want to pull that up? Maybe we can share that, or just give us a couple of tips from that.
yeah, definitely. What else?
Yeah, near, before, after you said, and you were going somewhere else, and then I interrupted you.
After you can also recently I did a new string that I was able to find source into resume books from colleges and
Oh, I
schools.
love that.
Yeah, and I thought this was great because I'm like, man, you can see like different resumes or what this person's going to or
The
what
entire graduating class of,
exactly. A
yeah,
lot, a lot of these, like, man, it's like, how would I put this? Like, you just don't know how much information there is out there on yourself
right,
when
yeah.
you source into these things, because like some of these books had like the person's their birthday, their
Oh my
parents' name,
god.
their brother's sister's name,
Oh
and
no.
like, and it's like that much information. It's
Oh, it's not
like that
supposed to be out there.
is exactly, and like I'm like, okay, this is a
So
lot
what?
of
How did you find? You give me an example of how you found it. Did you use like a PDF command, or
yeah.
did you?
Usually I use like file type PDF or file
Uh,
type doc. Um, Sometimes I go through like the Google image searches and see what run the string there, see what pulls up. Because you can also pull up things like using a Boolean code, like a photograph from left to right, L to R.
mhm.
You or like, hey, you looking for people who maybe graduated from a certain school or college, or a dentist. Like a lot of the dentists have their listed from left to right, or in the newspaper. They have the names or things of that nature. There's tons of strings I have for this. Tons.
So do you use like resume book, or is there another name for it?
I put resume book because that's what most colleges or university call their call their list. Because usually when you graduate, you have your career services center, and
Right.
they help you with a resume. And a lot of times they just keep those things on file unless you tell them like, hey, I want to remove my resume, and that all that information is
Got
there.
it. That's funny. That's awesome. Um, all right.
And
So on some of your posts, you've talked about sourcing through storytelling. Tell me about a time where strategic storytelling directly changed the result of a search, not hypothetically, but materially.
gotcha. I would say like what I mean by sourcing through storytelling.
Uh-huh.
That's the ability once you've gotten with your hiring manager or recruiter to your ability to tell a story about the role, not so much in selling a job description. You're telling this person, um, what they'll be like, what they'll be involved in, how you frame. It's how you frame the role. It's like I look at it like script writing. It's like, hey, you have
Okay.
first act, your second act, and your final act. Sometimes a lot of people want to hear that, like, okay, what does this first act begin like? That's usually your first 60 to 90 days.
First act. I like
With
that.
the company. Then you have your
Open curtain. First act.
yeah. Then you have your second act, and that's like, hey, what they want to know, like, hey, after this, what would I be involved in? Like, how
Okay.
how can I make an impact here? And
Right.
then usually you have your I guess your third
So
and
I
final.
got past my 90 days. I'm officially on. Now
Mhm.
what? Like, what's my next challenge? Okay.
Right, and then usually your third act is usually I consider your transition act. Usually that's either hey,
Hmm.
after I've been here a while, like where do I transition to? Like how do you tell them a story about, hey, this is what your next step maybe like senior or principal or consultant, things of that nature. And then if it's like super transitionary, like you've been there with a long time, it's like maybe like your yeah the retirement type thing or your final you end with the company. But usually transition that the third act is okay. I've been sourcing or I've been a recruiter for 2 to 3 years now. Um, what's the transformation act? What's the third act for me? Do I go to senior recruiter, principal talent recruiter, and your ability to be able to tell a story to them about that? Because that's usually what grips people. I say descriptions do not grip people. It's also like casting call when somebody's reading roles for a character. You,
Mhm.
you you see a description, you see this and that and other, but your ability to tell a story about this character is like, hey, you know what? I think I can play this role. I think I can do that.
So, you, you you mentioned with tools getting better at finding profiles. Um, you stress that judgment is still makes a big difference. So it's the discernment over automation that we were talking about, and there's AI tools and stuff like that are quote unquote better at finding profiles. I don't know about whether or not they're better. They may be faster, but they're certainly not better. I think it's not a matter of quality. I think that handmade sourcing is still going to beat machine made sourcing on a quality, but you might have other aspects like volume and speed and things like that. But regardless, with automation taking over and judgment still being a discerning factor, deciding factor, what what do you think sourcing will always have to do by hand that will never be automated?
Oh wow, that's a great question. What do I think will always be done by hand?
Yeah,
Um,
will always be done by hand. Yeah,
oh man, like
has to.
I'm trying to think what I would say because like to me it's like I do believe X-ray and Boolean would still always be done to a degree by hand because most tools like you mentioned today promise speed and scale, but they
Right.
rarely promise, how would I put this, understanding.
Right,
So
right,
you
right,
gotta have
right. And
somebody
most of them are only just searching LinkedIn or some, static databases. That's true. So there's very few tools out there that go beyond that. So okay, so
right
basically going beyond the database. Okay, that's yeah, that's
because you're gonna have to have somebody to actually teach. You know what I'm saying? Teach you like I can you the machine can spit it out for you, but
somebody
for
got
it's
to
like
teach the
somebody
machine.
learning or junior person coming in, uh, you have to either whether it's in person or virtually,
Hmm.
you have to get with that person and actually show them like what's going on here. You have to make sure they understand it because like that's like if you were to put me in front of like let's see what's a really hard programming language. I was gonna say no. Is that programming Ruby? Uh, does anybody use Ruby anymore?
Yeah, Ruby's still out there. Yeah.
Ruby. Like you can put me in front of it and like watch a video on it, but unless you like actually work with me to understand this, I don't know how good I'm going to be at it.
I see what you're saying. I understand. Okay, so to kind of paraphrase, it's and correct me if
I
I'm
got you.
off track here, but it's basically like the AI automation and these tools are a junior to intermediate sourcer. Um, but you still need a senior sourcer to supervise, train, do the things that are not automatable, and so on. So I think I understand, and then that's actually pretty aligned with what a lot of the literature out there says about AI agents, is that they do replace some of the lower level, and I don't mean that as in they're less valuable, but some of the tasks that are repetitive, time consuming, laborious, less intellectually driving. It also just even tasks that are critical to be done quickly, things like that. So it's the difference between mass producing drinking cups for disposable use versus handcrafting a beautiful art piece that's a goblet. Like you don't mass produce beautiful art goblets. So I understand what you're saying. And here's the thing though, the paradox in my opinion is that to become a master craftsman capable of producing a beautiful art goblet, you still have to have been an entry level artist. So we're replacing these entry level and middle level functions, and so somebody's still going to have to learn how to do those anyway in order to become a. So what happens is we automate the entry level and medium. How does somebody become an expert if there's no job for them to do?
Exactly.
Like I'm asking, how do you become an expert sourcer if the beginner intermediate sourcers are fully automated?
Gotcha. I think you have to. I think that comes down to drive and grit. You have to sit there and
you have to go out and do it anyway, even though automation is already. Yeah, I guess
find somebody who's done it, who's in the role. Because what these machines and AI must, to me, in my opinion, what they don't do, they don't force clarity. Clarity is one of the most
they don't force clarity.
Underrated skills in sourcing.
Explain that. They don't force clarity.
They don't. It's like I can look at this all day. They're not going to force clarity on it. I can ask, because a lot of these LLMs, like, how would they put their self-affirming? Like,
I see.
They don't offer, unless you tell it to give me, I almost say negative feedback or opposing feedback. It's not going to do that. And still, I think even if it's opposing feedback, it's going to be under the lens of a positive light to a degree. It's just going to
see what you're saying.
Affirm what
it's trying to please you and provide you an answer, but it's not going to make the decision for you.
Right. Exactly.
I see. That's probably a good thing, but I get what you're saying as far as that's a gap. So, I mean, I guess you have to, in order to, I teach my kids this all the time. You've got your data inputs, right? And then you've got information, which is data that has some sort of meaning. It informs you. Data that informs you, right, is information. And then you have knowledge, which is the application of that information. And then ultimately you have wisdom, which I think is kind of what we're talking about here, which comes from experience, which basically comes from making mistakes. So you might have all this knowledge, but no wisdom, because you know how to do it, but you haven't made enough mistakes. Wisdom comes from basically not doing it right. So I guess what you're saying is, in order to become an expert, you have to go out there and make a lot of mistakes, even if you're on your way to, that makes sense. Yeah, on your way to becoming an expert, even with all the automation, you're going to have to go out there and make the mistakes. Even if the automation is doing the work for you, you'll still have to go out and do it in order to get that wisdom.
Right.
I gotcha. I'm picking it up.
A lot of times they're shiny tools. They take away the abstract thinking. In my right. You have to be able to. You have to be able to do that. And going back to a foundational concept, Boolean demand stat. You can't hide vague requirements behind a fancy dashboard.
No, you can't.
It's not going to happen.
You just have a fancy dashboard with a lot more data than you can handle.
Exactly.
Because of the vague requirements. Well, dude, this has been fabulous. Absolutely fantastic. Folks, if you want the handout Martel's going to share with us, once again, you will have to join TSI University to get access to that. Sorry, that's just them's the rules. This is a free show. But I urge you to follow Martel. I think we put that information up there. If not, let me put that up there again, because he actually shares weekly ideas, trends, and openings, job openings. and with his massive community. Gosh, I don't know how many trillions of followers do you have nowadays? 20,000 or something like that. Yeah. So he shares weekly job openings and tips and insights. So I encourage you to visit his profile and follow him, and go to TSI University and check out the downloads. Thanks a lot for being here today. I appreciate it. I was so excited. I'm glad you're here. We'll have to bring you back again.
Likewise, I enjoyed it. It's fun. So.
Thanks. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. And until then, be kind to yourselves.